Welcome to today's video. My name is Kyan, and the purpose of today's video is to show you all the 3 books which had the largest impact on my life. Okay, so the first book I'm going to go ahead and talk about is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This is a book that I am constantly reading. It's always in the rotation. Just the ideas, the philosophical ideas present in this book about life, about humanity, are quite frankly timeless, and that's why this book has stood the test of time. Now, I'm usually not a huge advocate of annotating a book, but this book I am constantly writing new notes in the margin. So I'll go ahead and share some of my notes with you all. Everything is just for a while. Don't stress, for it does not matter in the grand scheme. So with that said, we have to remind ourselves that within the time, on the timeline of humanity and just Earth and our solar system, our galaxy, humans are just a very small blip on that timeline. So while we may stress over our daily lives and our day-to-day, at the end of the day, we're very insignificant. In the grand scheme of things, we quite frankly don't matter. Now, I realize that's a very macro view, about as macro as you can get. However, the way that I've applied that in my personal life is that, at the end of the day, in 1,000 years, no one's gonna know who I am. So with that said, I should do what I'm passionate about, I should do what I'm good at, and I should help propel humanity forward in any way possible. But at the same time, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Keeping in line with that lesson, we have to remember that again, everything is just for a while. Another profound idea that I've taken away from this book and sort of applied to the world around me is all things are mutations, but there is equality too in their distribution. All is familiar, no cause then for fear of anything new. Nothing is new under the sun. Everything evolves, everything builds on top of one another. For example, when you look at social media today, that's simply a mutation, an evolution of the newspaper of yesterday. Or when you look at the industrial age and then you look at the information age, again, that's just simply, in terms of business and human productivity, it's a mutation, it's an evolution of that idea and that essence. So with that said, there's nothing new under the sun. And that's kind of why I have taken an interest in history lately, because in order to go forward, you definitely have to look backward in order to know where you're going. Everything's not going to apply from the past, but there's a blueprint there, and you'll notice there are a lot of patterns because naturally humans are pattern-seeking beings, and we operate in patterns, we operate in routines. So in order to kind of catch the next big thing, you have to understand what the last big thing was, or what the last 3 big things have been, and why they have been that, and search for that similarity between these big things in order to apply that idea to something that's new. Another book that's had a very profound impact on me and really helped shape my trajectory in life and just how I view things in general is the Steve Jobs biography by Walter Isaacson. This book has been super profound because I've been able to draw parallels between my life and the life of Steve Jobs, someone who is arguably, the most influential person of the last 50 years. I'm a huge fan of biographies simply because I realize that as humans, it's smart to stand on the shoulders of giants. Again, this kind of goes back to the ideas that I was talking about within Meditations, but everything is an evolution, nothing is new under the sun. So with that said, you shouldn't try to figure out life on your own, because chances are there are people who have done the same things that you're trying to do, and you can learn from their failures, you can learn from their mistakes, you can see what worked, what didn't work, and adjust accordingly. So with that said, it's really a blessing because you don't have to figure this out on your own. You take cues from other people and you adjust and you go from there. I would say the greatest impact that this book has had on me has been definitely philosophical. Through the reading of this book, I was inspired to read other books such as The Autobiography of a Yogi, something that I often read, something that's always in rotation. This book inspired me to be vegan. and understand the value of like a vegan diet. Additionally, this book has really shaped me as an artist, because at the end of the day, what you'll realize is Steve Jobs was not a computer genius. He was simply an artist. When you read the book, you realize this man didn't know how to code. It's honestly quite mind-boggling that we hold Jobs such a high esteem given the fact that he wasn't really a computer scientist, but that goes to speak to his impact as an artist. Through this book, I've learned the importance of vision, the importance of execution, and the importance of leadership. And Steve Jobs was, quite frankly, at the top of the game at all three of those pillars. So taking cues from Steve has had a huge impact in my life, and quite frankly, I don't know who I would be if I didn't read this book. The last book which has really had a profound impact on me and helped shape the trajectory of my life is The Sovereign Individual. Essentially what this book does is it looks at the history of the human race and uses this to predict where we're going. So again, just that idea of looking backward in order to go forward. The reason that this book has been of such a great interest to me lately is because it was written in the late 1990s, yet it predicts crypto and what we're beginning to define as Web3. The ideas and predictions present in this book really started to take shape and were accelerated during the pandemic. During the pandemic, we really saw our life move more so online than ever before, and quite frankly, that's where we're going. Now, of course, there will always be a need for brick and mortar simply because it's easy to just go to the store and grab something as opposed to, waiting 2 days for Amazon Prime. But what's going to happen when it's only going to take 30 minutes for something to get to your door? Again, we'll always have brick and mortar stores, but the idea that the internet and your virtual identity will hold just as much, if not more weight than your physical identity is huge, and we're really starting to see that take shape with this idea of the metaverse and just a lot of the morals and principles behind cryptocurrency. Another huge idea that the book dives into is the idea of governments holding less power simply because the internet is sort of like the open sea and it's very difficult to police and govern. Let's look at tax revenue, for example. So currently a lot of jobs are being moved remotely, correct? So you don't have to go into the office. So really you can work anywhere on the planet as long as you have an internet connection and a laptop. With that said, if I'm making $60,000 a year, why would I live in New York City where the taxes are insane and the cost of living is insane when I can do the same job and earn the same amount of money and quite frankly experience more wealth and more utility from that money if I lived in some place like Texas or even rural Ohio? So going along with that logic, what we're seeing is these places that are known for having a stronghold on jobs and you have to live in Seattle to have a good job, or you have to live in New York to have a good job. What the book really exposed to me was the idea of a border is becoming less and less important. Following this logic, it simply doesn't make sense to live in a place where the cost of living is high and the tax rate is high. What we're going to see over the next 50 to 100 years is that governments will operate more so like a business as opposed to a bureaucracy. The customers, i.e. the citizens in this case, they're going to determine the market simply because, well, if I don't want to pay this tax rate or if I don't agree with this law, I can simply move and go to some place where I can get what I want for my money. So with that said, different cities are really going to start to compete and bend to the whims of their citizens. I'm very interested in the ideas behind Web3 and crypto simply because with this influx of decentralization, it allows people to A, have ownership in the things that they participate, and B, it gives us our time back. And once we have our time back, we'll be able to spend time pondering the existential questions within life. I'm a very philosophical person. I love to spend time thinking about questions that don't simply have an answer. So with that said, The Sovereign Individual has been very interesting to me. Okay, so those are the 3 books that have had the largest impact on my life. I hope you learned something. I encourage you to go ahead and read these books for yourself because I'm sure that you'll gain something from them. So with that said, go ahead and smash the like button, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't be late.